I think that's it. Thank you, Sophie. Thank you for the opportunity to talk.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Again, another great talk. I personally really enjoy it. I feel like I shared a lot of the same similar experience with you. Like I didn't know I want to be a data scientist until the very end of my PhD, and the transition was definitely not easy. Um, and I also really like your idea, like, be a mentor. Like, I found that my manager found me a mentor like the first year in my company, and then he encouraged me to be a mentor for intern. And I found this is really helpful, and definitely, yeah, it helps with my own career development by being a mentee and mentor. Yeah. Yeah, I see like we're a bit over time, so let's just get to the next speakers. Let me just share my screen. We can get to the questions later. Let me go back to this one. Okay, so yeah. Yeah, so the first part of this session is about three main talks. They have prepared slides, and we have three other ladies talk. They are just going to give a quick 5 minutes experience sharing about the most important tips. So yeah, our first one is Janet. Janet is a senior data scientist at Diamongen, where she programs microbes' DNA to produce valuable chemicals. She brings together computational biology, statistics, and machine learning to accelerate the rate at which we can improve engineered microbes. She spans a full range of bespoke analysis, production level software engineering, and technical and vision leadership. I really like this picture Jenny shares here, her two kids and apparently a feminist husband. So yeah, without further ado, let's see what Jenny wants to say. Okay, so let me stop sharing. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. And let me just, for if anyone, I feel like there's often a few biologists in the room. So if anyone is like, do reach out on me, do reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's really, I think I have a little bit extra to say to biologists that maybe isn't as relevant for everyone here. But yeah, so I also was a chemical engineer by training. And one thing I think that like people are talking about what brought them to data science. And I think an interesting little tidbit that you might like to hear is that it was actually a failure that brought me here. When I was interested in computation and didn't really even know what data science was in about 2013, I started looking around for internships in kind of computational biology. And I applied for this internship and I sort of thought it was a shoe-in, and I just assumed I had it because the person who I would be reporting to kind of made it sound like I did, but then the person above them said no. And so I asked why, and they said that they ended up choosing someone that could do machine learning instead. And so I quickly Googled what is machine learning? And that totally changed my life for the better. So first little piece of advice, let your failures bring the fire out in your heart and try to swallow that imposter syndrome and think I can do it. Yeah, so I think for me, some of the useful things are your second degree connections. So we all have kind of a small community. I mean, it's hard to keep in touch with more than tens of people. But if you do that a little bit, but then when you have a good interaction with someone, you say, I had so much fun chatting with you. Who should I chat with next? That can make it so much easier. You don't have to figure out who to talk to. We all know, if everyone we know knows 10 people that we don't, then you can sort of find the right people really quickly that way. Also just budgeting time for it. So I have some friends at work, like Arushi said, if you can find a little peer group in your company that can help cheer you on or give you advice or encourage you to bring up the salary conversations, or ideally even be transparent with your salary numbers so that you can understand where you sit. That can be really helpful. And for my peer group, we often sort of encourage each other to keep networking, and we sort of brag in a fun team spirited sort of way. I did my networking lunch this week. Yay. So if you can bring some community support from some work peers, that's always really helpful too. One of the things that I feel like machine learning is really hard, and like there's a lot to learn. Like I was joking that I wonder when the day is that I'll pick up my book, Elements of Statistical Learning, open a random page and be like, yeah, I knew all that. Like it's going to be a long time. So for me, a big part of being a good data scientist and finishing this transition is finding time to learn. And for me, what that looks like is going to bed right after my kids go to bed, which is like 8 o'clock. But if you go to sleep at 8, then you can wake up at 4 a.m. And I often get to work on things that I'm interested in that are sort of related to work, but more fundamentally about math and algorithms before work even starts. And it's sort of like exercise. Like you got to do the stuff that's for you first in the day, and then you can do the rest, do your job after that. Like you got to take care of yourself first. So I always try to get some studying and exercise in before I start the real day. And I think that's super helpful because it's sort of protected time. And yeah, like I think this came up a few times, but if you can have a friend review your offer when you do get your first offer, especially, that's super helpful. Like I had a friend who was at Nordstrom who'd done this science to data science transition, and she saw my offer and she was like, said in the most politely way, like, is that all they offered you? Like, and like I was like, this is amazing, this is quadrupling my salary from grad school. And she was sort of like, and like, if she didn't say that, I would have totally not negotiated. I just thought it was like, I thought that was a good offer. But anyway, she told me to aim higher and gave me some like websites that I could cite statistics for brackets. And it went up a little bit. It wasn't amazing, but I've since climbed a lot from there. So they saw my worth once I got in, at least. So yeah, don't stop advocating when you get the job either. Like if you can, keep comparing with your friends so that you can every few years write a letter that says like, I'm doing awesome, and I know that my peers in other companies get paid this much. Like, what can you do for me? Like that stuff works. You know, be nice, but work the system in a nice way too. There's some random thoughts.
Super helpful, yeah. Yeah, definitely a lot of helpful tips. When I first got my offer, I also didn't know like it's a fair number or not. Luckily, I was from a boot camp, actually, same with April. They helped me review the offer and definitely did some negotiation there. Yeah, super helpful tip. Yeah, let's get to April. Session. Yeah, actually know April from the My Bootcamp. So Dr. Harry is a data scientist and rover in Seattle, where she works on the science search algorithm. She enjoys using her background in statistics to address business problems, transforming data to solutions that directly impact the customer's experience. Cool. Yeah, so yours.
Cool. Hi, everybody. I'm April. As Sophie said, I'm a alum of the Insight Data Science program, which was a boot camp previously, and I did that here in Seattle, where now I work as a data scientist. But before I got a job in data science, I did a PhD in statistics at Purdue University, and I think probably the assumption that a lot of people might have, and the assumption that I very wrongly had towards the end of my PhD, is that, oh yeah, like statistics and data science, that's basically the same thing. So basically I have a PhD in data science. Turns out that that's not actually true at all. Um, so at least my program in statistics was pretty traditional in the sense that there was a lot of theoretical components. But my particular project was applied, and I did do a lot of computing, but that computing was almost was entirely in R, and was, looking back on it, just terribly written code. Like I would never write such a thing now. So there was plenty to learn in between finishing grad school and starting a career in data science, which is why I chose to go to a boot camp. And there, I think, so it was just a 7-week program or something like that. And the truth is, like with these boot camps, I don't think that you really sincerely learn a whole lot in that little bit of time. It's more about learning how to adapt what you already know and adapt your skills and learning that you gain from academia to a new situation, like to learn how to be flexible in this way. And and because of that, I think the main tips that I want to focus on right now are that basically as you work to transition to a career in data science from academia, try to focus on the things that you can anticipate that businesses might when they see a resume of a PhD, the things that make them hesitate to hire you. And I would argue that the things that would make them hesitate to hire you are the fact that you actually know nothing about what it means to run a business at the time that you graduate, or at least I didn't, right? So it's really useful, I think, to spend some time understanding what a business model is. Like pick an example place that you might want to work. Like say for example, I work for Rover.com, which is a pet care services company where people can hire sitters that sign up for Rover to take care of their pets. So when I think about Rover.com, it's important for me to understand like how does Rover actually make money with an app like this, basically. Um, and once you kind of understand how businesses make money, then that kind of directly translates into what businesses value in terms of like the actual work that their employees do. So I think like having both been the person being interviewed and interviews, I think what's important is like you shouldn't go in like wanting to dazzle people with all these fancy models that you might know in response to a question that they might have. What's important is that anything that you kind of talk about in interviews and stuff be grounded and understanding what the actual problem is at its core and presenting a solution that's reasonable and appropriate for the situation. Um, to be concrete, one thing that I try to do now that I think is helpful, and so if you're already in a career in data science, I think this is helpful, but also if you're trying to transition into one, this is helpful. I try to come up with, if I have a project, like say we want to make a change to the search algorithm, I try to come up with a solution that's good, one that's better, and one that's the best. And I think oftentimes PhDs tend to go straight for the best and not want to like compromise on that. But if you, it's a really good practice to like force yourself to compromise, to say, oh, well, if I pretend that this assumption actually isn't violated by this data, I could do something else that would take maybe 3 weeks less time. Or, and then you could say something like, well, I could patch things together and get something out in the next 2 weeks, but this is bad for these reasons, right? So if you're able to kind of put together a tiered proposal of like different options, it'll help you see places where you can compromise perhaps on like your perfectionism that you're taught in the time that you're in graduate school, and strike that balance a little better between being an academic from an academic background and being a professional in industry now. Yeah, so I guess that's basically all I wanted to say.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, business sense is really important. I remember when I was inside April, you offered to do some mock interviews with me, and I remember the business problem was always the one I found the most challenging. I think at that time I was still like struggling with transition from PhD was more like, skills focus, academic focus, engineering, technology focus. But in industry, especially as applying scientist, it was more like problem focus, product focus. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, so let's get to Charlene. Let me see my Chrome.